What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and I realize that this is coming out the day after the game, but we drove home last night from Orlando from actually going to see the game, so I didn't really have a chance to make my review because I came home and went straight to sleep. In fact, if you want to rewatch that Villalba goal, which I know pretty much everybody does, but if you really want to watch it closely and then pause and zoom in on, if you're facing the goal from the field, the left side of the goal, you'll see like four people celebrating in the second row, and you'll see three people behind them, a couple rows back. I'm one of those three people. I was right there. It was incredible. So before I get into actually talking about the performance itself, I do want to address two things kind of outside of the game. First of all, the atmosphere was really, really good. And I say that with kind of a mixture of surprise but also gratitude because first of all, we haven't really seen, I think, another club that really has the fan base that we've been growing. You know, Seattle and Portland are obviously two that they've been growing for a while now, and they've probably set the standard for new teams coming into the MLS as far as how to start a club. And so I think, we have them to thank for setting the bar high for expansion clubs to come in. But as far as some of these other stadiums we're going to, NYCFC is another one that's come in recently that honestly, I mean, who wants to go to Yankee Stadium to watch a soccer game? I'd prefer to go to actual soccer stadium. But going to Orlando last night was just so much energy, and the atmosphere was brilliant. It was so exciting to be a part of. Even if the atmosphere was against us, it was still a lot of fun to be there. And that's something that I don't think you could say for a lot of these other clubs elsewhere. I think if you go to probably some of these clubs that have been around for a while, I don't think they have the fan base that we have, or that Orlando has, or even Seattle, which obviously I'm not going to head to Seattle to watch a game there. But I just think that's incredible. And I think the reason that I have so much gratitude for it is that can help grow the league. I mean, when teams come in like us, like Orlando, and have the fan base that they have and really bring a lot of passion to the game, it can really grow the league in general in the U.S. When you see that amount of fan base and that amount of support for a team, it can really help grow the sport here. And I think that's something that needs to happen because, I mean, we really don't do well internationally. So if we grow the sport and make it popular here, there's a good chance that we start to get our youth involved in it, and now they're growing up, and we're getting more stars like Christian Pulisic coming in instead of having to wait 10 years for the next superstar to come in. So I really hope that this does help. The other thing to talk about, though, is the rivalry between Atlanta and Orlando. So there's been a lot of talk about, is this rivalry being manufactured? Is this actually going to be a rivalry or not? There's been a lot of talk about it leading up to the game. Based on the reaction of a lot of the Orlando fans last night, I'd say it's a rivalry. I mean, walking into the stadium, I think people told me F you Atlanta like 5 or 6 times. I saw an Atlanta United guy with like cuts and bruises all over his face where he probably got the crap kicked out of him because he probably said something he shouldn't have, and then a couple of Orlando fans that probably had a little too much to drink decided, hey, we don't like what you just said, and probably kicked the shit out of him. And, I mean, just in the stadium, listening to their fan section, not as family friendly as our fan section, but, I mean, their very first chant, as soon as we get in, before warm-ups have even started, they're, F Atlanta. And I'm just like, this is a rivalry. This is exactly what a rivalry should be. And I don't know what to expect from our fans this next week, next Saturday. I don't know if we're going to have the same type of chants going on, if we're going to be just as abrasive as they were. But yeah, it was very abrasive atmosphere, and that's just what you expect from a rivalry. You expect the other fans, the opposition fans, to be hostile towards you. To see that you're wearing the opposition jersey and just be like, hey, F you, man. So yeah, I really think that's another thing that can really grow the league. I mean, the Seattle-Portland game and even kind of the New York-New York game, those two games are two that really are focused on a lot because it's like, oh, the big rivalry, the in-state rivalry, and then you got Seattle and Portland, two huge clubs out west, battling for this game, and that's just something that once again can grow the league and the interest. Oh, Atlanta's playing Orlando again. Get ready for a chippy atmosphere. A lot of fans yelling at each other. Probably some fights happening in the stands. So yeah, another thing that just makes it a lot of fun. So now let's talk a bit more about the game. First of all, I do want to address the referees again because, frankly, I kind of have to because these referees were really bad again. And the thing is, if it was bad both ways, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, okay, yeah, the ref sucked. Let's move on. Whatever. We've come to expect it in the MLS. But the fact of the matter is, there are so many blatant calls that they're missing. And I don't know how you can miss it. I mean, there was one moment in the first half, Assad was called offside. Turned to look at the replay. He's a good foot, 2 feet onside. Easily onside. And somehow the guy misses it, calls him offside. There's a chance that Orlando gets in the first half. Guzan makes an incredible save. Free kick comes in, guy heads it, flicks it on. Guzan gets down well, parries it away. Parkhurst, clears the ball, but he's asking for an offside. Watch the replay. The guy's a good 2 or 3 yards ahead of the defense when he comes in to make his header. How do you miss that? And then there are just so many other little things going on. The Orlando City players going over easy, getting every call. Just all this little stuff going on. Some of the little fouls off the ball. Some of them aren't getting the attention they deserve. And there were a couple that did go our way that probably shouldn't have. But for the most part, the big non-calls or calls were made in Orlando City's favor. And that's frustrating, because it happens at our house a lot too. And I do think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are not an established team. And so a lot of these MLS referees that have been in the league probably for a few years know this Orlando City team for the past 2 years, don't know our players, and so are more likely to give it to the team that's been around for longer. So it was really frustrating from that. But probably the most frustrating thing of all, and this is just something that I say for most referees in general, is the amount of times that he would stop the game to talk to somebody for some reason. Stopping it to talk to guys battling in the box, stopping it because the whole Assad thing. He get kicked in the side of the head, they check him out, they say he's clear to play, they play him, and all of a sudden he's having to stop the game to bring him across. And then Gressel makes a sub while they're checking him out, and now he's trying to force him off the field at the sideline instead of going to the middle of the field. I'm just like, first of all, you can add the time on that it's taking for him to get to the middle of the field. You can just add it back on. You don't have to force him off the field. He grabbed him to try to push him off the field. That's something you hardly ever see a referee do. You'll see them hurry them along by pushing him from behind, but he went up and stood in his way and grabbed him in a bear hug to try to force him off the field before carding him for not stepping off at the sideline instead of going to the middle of the field, which most players do anyway. Most of them want to go give a high five to the guy coming in for a sub. I hardly ever see a professional go off on the sideline to make the sub. It was so bizarre, and at the end of the game he had 5 minutes on anyway, which is probably a good minute more than they deserved. So, yeah, it just very strange to see him waste his own time and then get mad at our players whenever they're taking their time. Who cares if you're wasting all this time? Who cares if our players are doing it? All you have to do is just add it in at the end anyway. So yeah, that's something that's probably always going to be a frustration for me. The referees, they suck. But let's get on to the performance itself. First of all, talk about Tito's goal. Really, really great finish. And it's funny because we actually got to see our team warm up for the first time ever. Because most of the time we're sitting across from the fan section at Bobby Dodd. This time we're sitting across from the fan section here in Orlando, and that's where our team is warming up instead of the opposition team. So instead of making fun of the players, we're listening to the Orlando fans make fun of our players. But one of the funniest things about it is I'm watching Tito hit his shots in warm-up, and every single one that he struck, laces, powered through it, not trying to place it in the corner, every single one of those over the goal. And even there were a couple in the game where he hits the shot and it's just like, no, Tito, no, that was terrible. There's a free kick where Almiron looks like he's about to bend it to the far post, and instead Tito goes for goal and just hits it over the goal. So as he's lining up for this shot, I physically went, nah. Strikes it, buries it in the back corner. I had to eat my words. But frankly, I'd much rather eat my words than be justified in groaning. So I don't know. It's this effect that I have. Whenever I watch Chelsea and Pedro's lining up for a shot, or if he's playing poorly, most of the time I'm like, get him off the field, and then he goes and scores. The same thing happened last night. Tito's lining up for a shot. No, yes. So I don't know. It was a brilliant hit. I watched it again and again on the replays last night on our way home. Just an excellent strike. Hopefully he can do it again next week. But it's likely one of those things where he hits it that well probably once every 5 games. This was his 5th game, so. But as far as individual performances go, Guzan for me, great start. I mean, frankly, there's not much more he could have done last night. So many good saves he had to make. That one that I was talking about with the offsides call that should have been called but wasn't, had to get down so quick. And on top of that, not only made the save, but parried it wide enough to where it wasn't in a dangerous position anymore. I mean, just the reaction time to be able to do that, it was incredible. And on top of that, so much more organization back there from him. And thankfully we were so close to the field and we could actually see and hear kind of what was going on. And listening to him, I mean, he's communicating with everybody. And I think I said before, this is one of the things that Can needed to work on because he wasn't that vocal. And you could tell there were a lot of moments where he's coming out and he wants it, but he doesn't talk, and so now the defender is beating him to it and heading it away, when all it took was keeper and then catch it and then it's yours. So just so much more experience from Guzan. Most of the night he's talking to Perez because, Perez of the 2 defenders is a bit more erratic and probably a bit more naive. And so with Guzan back there, I just see him starting to command his box a lot more. And there were a couple moments where, it was a bit nervy from him. There was one in particular where he probably should have come out and grabbed the corner, but instead he was unsure of what to do. And so he just kind of stayed, and then the ball happened to go through a bunch of heads, and nobody got a touch on it. And he had to, quickly parry it away because it happened to go right to him. So there are a couple moments that I think probably need to work on a bit more here and there. But, I mean, he kept a clean sheet, made several good saves, commanded the back line a lot better than Can has. Great start for him, and hopefully he can continue from there and just get better and better. In the back line, same back line that we've had, and a back line that's really starting to grow on me. Walks on the right side, very solid defensively. A couple mistakes near the end, I think, when he's starting to get tired, letting people get past him, a couple poor passes. But defensively for most of the game, I mean, he did well. The only problem I think he has defensively is whenever he gets up in the attack. That's about it, because he is a bit slow to get back, but he still does. He still works back very hard. It's just there were a couple times in very dangerous situations where you're like, Walks, where are you? And then there he's come. So, just overall, though, defensively very sound. However, crosses still need a lot of work. And, Garza didn't really hit any crosses this game, so it's hard to really say, Walks is the only one that needs to work on his crossing. Probably everybody does. But his crosses are just so bad. And the fact of the matter is, he has several bad crosses. It wasn't like, he had one and then they improved as the game went on. It was like he had a bad cross and then another one that was to the back of the box and another one that was right at the keeper. The only good cross he had that was actually in a dangerous situation, keeper ends up saving it. So, I don't know, just the way we play, typically our center backs stay back. Jeff will drop in the space kind of right in front of them to become almost a third center back, and then our fullbacks get up in the attack. Well, he's always up there, and he's most of the time the one hitting the cross, so you want him to improve. And on top of that, Garza on the other side, he's still cutting in every single time. And I talked about this in the San Jose game, how he just kept cutting in, and then there's nobody at the back post when the cross is too far. if you are back there, all of a sudden this bad cross turns into, oh, we have a chance at it because somebody was there. But Garza is just still cutting inside, and I don't know if that's by design, if Martino wants him in the box. But I say just stay out wide, and now when the cross is bad and you're there to win it, now we're in a dangerous situation because nobody's read that. Nobody's going to read, oh yeah, I'm waiting for a bad cross. And now you're there, and now you're either in on goal or you have a chance to cut it back across to somebody. So I just think it's a little bit of both as far as his crosses go. But I would prefer to see more crosses coming from the left side just because Walks can get up in the air and win it. So I don't know why Walks is the one mainly doing the crossing. But in the center defense, Parkhurst and Perez, Parkhurst really had a good game. Just really solid, really read the game well, had to make some really good challenges too. Just all around showing his knowledge, what he can do on the field. His reading of the game is very excellent. So, yeah, I think he had a really good game. Probably the only complaint I'd have with him is he should be talking just as much as Guzan is. Guzan, obviously, he is the keeper, so he can see more than Parkhurst can, but I still expect Parkhurst to really lead the back line, really talk to everybody. Because you want your defenders talking too. You don't just want it to be your keeper talking to everybody else. So that would be my only complaint with him, but as far as his play was, it was incredible. Perez, better game from him. I've had some problems with him in the past few games, just a lack of, I guess, common sense of when to run forward, when to stay back, what passes to play. Because there's so many times where he's giving the ball away cheaply in poor areas where now all of a sudden it's dangerous for us. On top of that, there are quite a few moments where he wins it, and instead of looking for an outlet, he tries to dribble into the midfield. And now all of a sudden, if he does lose it, which he didn't last night, thankfully, but there have been some moments where he lost it in the past couple games, and now all of a sudden he's out of position, and we're a man down back there. So, I don't know, there's still a lot of naivete in his game overall, defensively, and even going forward with the ball, but there were several moments where his athleticism and just how easily he can win a ball off of a player, his strength, it showed last night. There were several moments where he was called upon to be in a one-on-one situation and it looked dangerous for a moment, and then Perez steps in and he kind of shuts down any sort of chance that they have to get a cross in. So there are moments in his game where you can see that's why he's out there, that's why Martino continues to trust in him. But there are several moments where I think he needs to look at this part of his game. He needs to look at, okay, he's intercepted the ball, now make a better pass. Or, tracking players, tracking runs into the box, making sure they don't cut in front of you, putting yourself in between them and the goal. Those part of his games, I think he really needs to focus on a lot more. And it's something that Guzan, several moments where Guzan's having to tell him, yeah, pick up that player. You're letting him go, stay on him. So, but a better game from him overall. And then Garza on the left side, probably his most ineffective game, just because defensively, had a couple good challenges, but overall got beat with a lot of speed. And then going forward, didn't really create much. His passes weren't really coming off. So he just kind of, seemed like he was just another player out there. It didn't seem like he was really doing much with the ball or without the ball. Which is, not to say he still isn't one of our better players, but I do think he did have an off game last night. So kind of disappointing from him, but still average. It wasn't terrible. Carmona in the midfield, average as well. Some good defensive challenges, some good moments of winning the ball in dangerous situations. Whenever it looked like they were about to counter, he steps in and wins it or puts pressure on the player, which now slows their counterattack. But there are also moments where he's diving in too easily. There's one moment in particular where Orlando City player picked up the ball and just touched it past him, and he's on his heels, and now he's having to try to turn and run, and the guy's already past him. There's no way he's going to catch him because he's planted. So there are some moments defensively where it's a bit frustrating, and his passing, especially his diagonal, needs a lot of work because he loves to look for that, oh, there's a player out wide, I'm going to send it to him. But every single time it's like a chipped, lofted ball, and every time you do that, the defender's going to read that and have plenty of time because it's just floating in. You watch some of the best players who can do that, who can send that diagonal. They put a lot of pace on it. They really drive it to them. They still get it over the defender, but there's a lot of speed on it, which means the defender now has hardly any time to react to it. Now the best thing they can do is just shut down the player who has the ball now, because they're not going to intercept it. But whenever you just chip it in, especially when you've got players out there like Assad, they're not going to win the ball in the air. The best thing they can do is hope to put the defender off and force them to head it to one of our players, but they're not going to win it in the air. The only time that would kind of work is with Vasquez, but even then, he wasn't doing well in the air last night. So it's just that diagonal needs to be a lot better. Whether you put more pace on it or whether you just look for a pass in behind the defense, low and on the ground. But this little lofted ball is just killing us every time because we keep some good possession and then you look for that ball and now they have the ball. So little frustrations from him, but still didn't have a terrible game. Jeff, obviously, I've really enjoyed his performances recently. I really enjoyed last night's performance. So good at just reading the game, making crucial interceptions, working hard in the midfield to make sure that they just don't have space to run or a clear path to run, really. Because it would be so easy for him to just kind of be like, all right, well, he's got that man, so I'm just going to stay over here and watch this area. He doesn't think like that. And this is one of the things, talking about Gonzalez for the U.S. national team, his mindset sometimes is, oh, you're there too, so I'm going to let you have the ball, which leads to moments of, okay, well, now the other team wants the ball more. They're going to win it off of you because you don't really want the ball. You're just waiting for somebody else to come get it. Jeff doesn't think like that at all. His first thing is, I'm going to win that ball. The other team has it, I'm going to win it back. And he's almost always the player that's the first one to step in. Unless Carmona's closer, Jeff most of the time is the one that's there. He is the one that's stepping in. He's the one that's putting pressure. He's the one that's slowing down their attack. What he does in the midfield is just so underrated. And I really hope that people start to notice what he does for us defensively, because without him, this game could have easily been 3 or 4-0 in the first half because of how many chances they had catching our players with a bad pass and then just starting to head down the field so quickly. But then there's Jeff, and he's stepping in, he's slowing them down, he's winning the ball back, or he's putting pressure on them, forcing them to have to go out wide, and now our players have had a chance to retreat. So really, probably the most underrated player that we have on the field. Assad on the left side, not his best game. Probably closer to one of his worst games. Just passes were not coming off. Shots, really taking dumb shots in dumb areas, bad angles and stuff. So it just really wasn't happening for him last night. His effort was still there, though, and that's something that I think he always brings to the field, even when his passes aren't coming off, even when, why are you taking a shot from there? That's stupid. And he still works so hard to win the ball back, and that's something that not a lot of players out there do, especially our attacking players. Sometimes Tito will step in to try to win it, sometimes Miguel will step in to try to win it, but most of the time you see them work really hard when one guy has the ball to win it back. But as soon as they lay it off, they may chase that one, but that's the last one they'll chase. They're not chasing more than 1 or 2 passes around him. Assad, it just feels like it's all over the field trying to chase down the ball because he wants to win it back. Especially when he's the one that loses it, he really wants to win it back because he knows it's his fault. So I really do appreciate that effort, and I mean, he got kicked in the side of the head because of that effort. So yeah, he does bring that to the field, but unfortunately that's not the only reason he's out there. He's out there to be a creative player. He's out there to work with Miguel and with Tito to try to force something to happen up top, and that just wasn't coming off for him last night. So a little disappointing, but still has the work ethic to still be somewhat effective. Still have a reason to be out there. Gressel on the other side, however, no reason really to be out there. I mean, just didn't create anything for us. His passes were terrible. He's too slow to really do anything to help us defensively. Most of the Orlando City players were quick. They had good speed or they had good acceleration. Gressel has neither. He's not quick in his acceleration, but also when he finally gets up to speed, even then, there are still players that are several paces ahead of him because he's just too slow to do much of anything. So I don't know, just whenever we face a team with a lot of speed, don't expect him to be that effective. Unless they are pushed up completely and he finds himself in a pocket of space where he's just completely unmarked, don't expect him to do anything for us. So just completely ineffective player out there. Not surprised to see he's the first sub off. Miguel in the middle, really once again showing that even though he didn't contribute to an assist or a goal, still very effective player. Still creating so many chances, still forcing the Orlando City back line to have to adjust. Whenever he starts to cut inside on one of his runs and, he's taking it in and out of players, they're diving in trying to win it, he just flicks it away from him and now he's in space. It causes the back line to have to adjust and have to shift. And it just really puts a lot of players under pressure. And whenever you have a player who can do that, it's great. Because now they're wearing themselves out chasing him. They're wearing themselves out having to shift back and forth across the field to try to cover for him. So, yeah, I love what he does on the ball. I hope he gets a goal in the next few games or at least a couple assists just to sort of show that he's still one of our best players. But even though he doesn't get the goal or the assist tonight, I still think just watching him on the ball and off the ball, there's still so much he does outside of that goal that just contributes to the lack of I guess the desire to close down late on in the game because they're so tired from having to chase him for most of the game that now Tito just has a ton of space to have the shot because nobody's got the energy to close him down. And of course that does bring us to Tito as the last one. Worked very hard for most of the game, just trying to win the ball back, trying to create something. But unfortunately, kind of like Assad, it wasn't coming off. The goal does help to sort of boost his rating overall. If he hadn't gotten the goal, probably would have been just an average game from him overall. The goal does boost it up a little bit, but still outside of the goal, if you look at everything else aside from that, he does work hard at times, but a lot of the time it's for himself. You don't really see him making a run that's going to draw a defender away to create space for somebody else to make a run. Most of the time he's only making a run because he wants the ball, and that's it. And even then, he makes that run, they don't play him the ball, and then he just kind of stops because he's frustrated. So, I don't know, he is kind of a selfish player, and you can see that with some of the shots that he takes, just kind of random shots. Luckily, that one went in last night, but there have been several games, past few games, where he's taken shots like that, and they haven't gone anywhere close. And there are several better options in the middle, in the middle of the box or to look to cross to the back post. So he still needs to get that selfish nature out of his game. However, if he's able to hit them like that consistently every game, I wouldn't mind the selfish nature. But because that happened, and it's the first time in like several games that he's had a great shot like that, it is kind of frustrating when he decides to take those shots on. And that's why the no as he hits it came out, because I've seen that before, and most of the time it doesn't go in. So, yeah, it's mixed bag with him, back and forth, pros and cons. But I think because he's not really our main striker, because he's kind of more our right wing and Martinez is our top striker, I don't really expect to see him doing that a whole lot. But because he's kind of become our backup striker whenever Martinez is hurt, you want to see him creating a lot more. You want to see him working with, Miguel and Assad on the left side, trying to interact with them more instead of just, I'm going to have a shot and it's going to fly in once every 5 games. So, on to the subs that came on, because there were some good subs that really did come on and change the game for the better. First of all, I think the best sub all night, Vasquez comes on for Gressel. I think Vasquez just brings so much more between his height and his little quick acceleration in behind. And on top of that, he's got a pretty good touch too. But I don't know, he just brings this energy that I don't think Gressel has. Not that Gressel isn't trying or has a lack of energy, but you look at Gressel and you look at how slow he is, and then you look at Vasquez and he's just got a little bit more of speed to him. He's just got that good quick acceleration in behind. He's got a sense of what to do. That one run he made in behind where he's waiting, he sees his opportunity. I can't remember who played it to him. I think it was Carmona. Great little ball in behind, and he times his run to perfection. it ends up leading to a shot that probably should have done a bit better on. Just kind of passed it low, and keeper's at a near post, easily going to make the save. But that run does show that he has a sense of when to make the run, of when to really try to cut in behind. And because he's so young, I think he's still 18 or 19. Because he's so young, it's nice to see that he's got a good sense for the game. He knows where to be. He knows how to read the game. Now, if he could just use his height a bit more and get more of an advantage out of that height, that would be great. Because, like I said, there were several moments where we're trying to find him in the air, but it's just not coming off because the defender's beating him in the air. I think he needs to be a bit more smart in how he uses his height, because you can see there are some players like Martinez who he's not that tall, but he times his jump to perfection, so he's still able to challenge even the tallest players. Vasquez doesn't time his jumps very well, so even though he's very tall, the defender last night was so much better at timing his jumps that he's beating him in the air every single time. So I would say that needs to improve in his game, just because that's something that he should be good at, winning the ball in the air. But like I said, he's a young player, and he showed that he does have a good sense for the game. So I think he's got a very promising future for him. McCann was the second one to come in for Assad, and at that point, Assad was just, he'd gotten kicked in the head, he'd gotten, kicked in the leg as well. So, he was beaten up, and I think at that point you're just trying to get him off, and hopefully, the injuries weren't that bad. Hopefully he comes back stronger next week, not feeling the effects of this game. But McCann coming on, I think only reason for that is for some reason Kratz wasn't on the bench. I didn't see an injury report for him. I saw Martinez was injured, but I didn't see that he was injured anywhere. So I don't know what's going on with Kratz, but normally I think Kratz would come on in that position just because his work effort is so good. McCann's work effort is good, but he's also kind of naive of when to use that work effort. There's some players that work at the wrong times. They're making the run when they really should kind of be letting themselves rest, because chances are you're probably not going to get there in time. So I don't know. Like I said before about him, he's a good overall player, but there's nothing special about him. There's nothing that makes him stand out as a player. There's nothing that, oh yes, I want him on my team for this reason. He's tall, so he can win the ball in the air, but for the most part, that's it. He doesn't really bring much else to the field. So take from that what you will. He didn't really do much in this game, but I guess he did put in a couple good challenges here and there. And then the last one to come on was Ambrose for, I think it was Villalba. And that was just, at that point, we had just scored one up. We're trying to hold on to the lead, so bring on a fullback to kind of hold in that wing position and probably be dropped in a lot more. Ambrose, though, is a player who he's younger, but he's shown a lot of promise in the games where I've seen him, so I hope he can start to kind of grow into the team a little bit more, especially because I think Walks isn't really a fullback. He's done well there, but I think we see from his crossing, he's not really able to play that position, both sides of the ball, very well. I think he would be much better probably in the middle. And it would be probably very interesting, because I think Perez may be a bit better right now as a center defensive mid, just because I think his dribbling out of the back or his passing doesn't hurt you as much when he's in that position compared to when he's a center back. So it could be one day where we see Perez and Laurentowicz in the middle with Parkhurst and Walks in the center and then Ambrose on the right side. So just something to look at going forward. But I mean, he came on and didn't really have much time to do anything, but still worked hard and obviously was out there to just be defensive, and that's pretty much what he did. But he's a young player that, once again, just kind of like Vasquez, I think he's got a bright future ahead of him because his work is very good. And it seems like he's got a sense of where to put himself on the field and where to be defensively. So, but all around, I mean, sneaking a 1-0 win away at Orlando, it's excellent. It's not something we were expecting, probably. Most people may have come in thinking, oh yeah, we've got this easy. Honestly, throughout most of the game, watching the passing, watching even some of the defending at times, I was nervous. I thought if we can come out of here with a point, it would be a great result. So to manage to somehow get that goal late on sneak a winner late on. First of all, it's a kick in the teeth to Orlando, which makes it all the more exciting for next week. They're going to come in feeling aggrieved that they let that late one go in and when they were having the best chances to give away the tie and end up losing the game on top of that. I mean, they're going to come in looking for revenge. They're going to come in thinking, okay, that wasn't right. That wasn't what we wanted, so now we're going to come to your place and try to do it to you. But I mean, overall, just looking at the performance, it wasn't a good performance for the most part. I mean, yeah, some of the players did put in good performances, but it was a very disjointed team performance. Players like Miguel and players like Tito, even though they both had good and average games, they weren't having good and average games together. It was like Miguel was off doing his thing, Tito was off doing his thing, Yamil was off doing his thing, and then Gressel was just being Gressel. So I think all over the field, it was just some players were putting in good performances, but they weren't really working together as a team as well. And a lot of that probably has to do with the break. Being out of the game for 17 days can affect you. Even if you are training every single one of those days, it's so much different in training than it is in a game. And so when you're playing those games and you're, week in, week out, you're playing a game a week, you really get into the flow of it. You start to really getting that rhythm going and start working together as a team. Whenever you have a 17-day layoff and you're not playing anybody and you're just training, it really can disjoint the team. And a lot of the passing and a lot of the movement that's been happening in the past few games, the games that we've been winning, it doesn't translate whenever you haven't played for 17 days. So on top of that, I do think not having Martinez did hurt us a bit. I saw it was apparently a right foot contusion. So yeah, I don't know how bad it was. They said it was like a day-to-day thing. They were checking him every day. All right, are you good to go today? That type of thing. So hopefully he'll be back soon and back into training because frankly we've already missed him so much of this season. We need him to play. But I don't think it was that bad. If they're saying it's a day-to-day check, it's probably not that bad. It's probably just something that happened in training. And so they're just playing it by ear. He wasn't ready last night, so they'll check tomorrow to make sure he's okay. But I'm really looking forward to next week. It's going to be really nice to see 2 games in a row, especially against Orlando. I'm really excited for them to have to come to our stadium and experience our fans getting at them because it's so much different whenever you're in an atmosphere where everybody's backing you, and then you go to an atmosphere where everybody's against you. It can really, really affect you. So I'm really excited for that game. Hopefully you guys are too. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on last night's game? What do you expect to see next week? And did you go to the game? What were your thoughts on the atmosphere if you did? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. I'll see you guys in the next game.